my colleagues down here at the front, we've got Casey and Amelia. They helped me put this presentation together. To start off with, is anyone in this room an economist or have you studied macro or microeconomics? Can you please raise your hand so I can have a look? This is awesome. Okay, there's a little bit of economics in this presentation, and if my arguments are flawed, I do implore you to leave some feedback. We have a SurveyMonkey link here. All you can do is just jot down some ideas, critique our presentation. We'd really welcome your feedback. So today, the whole point of this is I want you to walk away with an argument, an opinion about technology and its role in society from a slightly economic point of view. You know, this is the point of social informatics, is what's the role of technology? How's it impacting us on a culture, sort of context, country context? So I want you to have an opinion on the standard of living, on productivity, on technology and innovation. And you'll see as this presentation develops why this is. So we have a quote here from Paul Krugman, who's a very famous economist in the USA and is a Nobel Prize winner. And this quote says, productivity isn't everything, but in the long run, it is almost everything. And just think about the significance of this statement for a second. Here's a Nobel Prize winner saying that productivity is almost everything. Has anyone here heard of the productivity paradox? So if you've done fundamentals of information systems, or if you've done enterprise architecture, both core subjects, you guys should be slightly familiar with this topic, but I won't hold it against you. So today I'll be talking about why you should care about this topic. Second, what the productivity paradox really is. Where are we at now? Where is the world at with the productivity paradox? Why are we here? Possible explanations, and what's going to happen in the future. And this is just our prediction. So to start off with, why should anyone care? Labour productivity, if you're unaware, this is a bit of a background, is the amount of goods and services produced by us when we are working in the economy per an hour. So this contributes to gross domestic product, which is just the amount of spending in the economy. So if you think, okay, I work in this job, I create X amount of goods and services, I'm contributing to my country or a country's economy. Second definition is the standard of living, and that's the sort of level of wealth you have, what access to public goods and services, what's your income, how many people are in your house, do you have a plasma TV or do you have an old CRT TV, do you have a smartphone, like your general standard of living, what kind of baseline wealth do you have? And labour productivity and standard of living are inextricably linked. If labour productivity grows 1% per year, in 70 years it will double your standard of living. So can you imagine that? Your standard of living will actually double. The amount of money, the amount of wealth you have access to, the amount of spending in your economy will double. Productivity, labour productivity grows 2%, that is halved. It'll take half the time. So it's in all of our best interests to make sure that labour productivity is growing as fast as possible. Then we'll see these improvements in our standard of living. Now there's only two ways to improve labour productivity, and this is to save more. Now, from an economic viewpoint, this means that there's more money in the economy, we can spend it on capital goods, and this is a little bit technical. The other one is to innovate, and we've all heard of innovation. So, if you guys aren't familiar, Japan, China, USA, Singapore, all these countries around the world have innovation strategies. So this sort of puts it in context why, doesn't it? Productivity, standard of living, innovation, sort of, you understand where we're going with this? Now I said capital spending also increases labour productivity, and as you can see here, over the last 30 years, it's declined. And a PwC report released in June last year said, you know what, the amount of money that you spend on capital goods doesn't really improve productivity that much. It's sort of like a minimum threshold. The rest of it has to come from labour productivity, so new innovations. And you see there's a lot of government subsidies, and this is just a bit of fun, saying that really the government must create an environment that is conducive to innovation in order to improve our standard of living. So what is the paradox? The productivity paradox, contradiction between technological advancement and relatively slow productivity growth. In the last 10 years, 3D printing, autonomous vehicles, drones, smart chips, smartphones, iPad, iPhone, we've had Facebook, YouTube, Dropbox, etc. These things in the last 10 years, there's been a rapid exponential increase in the technology we've had at our disposal. But for the last 60 years, labour productivity, growth. We're talking about growth here. We're not talking about a level. We're talking about each year how much it grows. It's declined. Just think about this for a second. So where are we at now? So this world map, according to United Nations Human Development, they say that the most advanced economies in the world, Australia, USA, Canada, Europe, parts of South America, and Japan. Now, these form a good baseline for you to think about, okay, these guys at the forefront, they're the most advanced economies. On the innovation scale, maybe they're over here. All the other countries in the world, they're developing, trying to get to this innovation point. So there's quite a lot of room for them to improve and for the standard of living to get there. But if we look at the US, if we concentrate on the US, we can look at their standard of living, we can look at where they are in terms of innovation, and perhaps where all these developing countries might be one day. Now, the US has actually stagnated, like we've seen in that previous graph. Economic growth has declined for the last 60 years. However, there has been small cycles within the last 60. And this is where the productivity paradox comes in. So, as you can see here, productivity paradox was introduced by Robert Solow, another Nobel Prize winner. And what did he say? He said, productivity is everywhere. Sorry, you see computer age everywhere, but in the productivity statistics. Now, he made this statement and he said, despite all the spending, we spent billions of dollars in IT, but we aren't seeing it in terms of labor productivity growth. But you know what? Because managers, because business leaders saw they had improved decision-making capability, they had a lot more information at their disposal, their operations were running smoother, everyone just dismissed it. Like, no, this can't be true. Like, this technology is really helping us. That was here, about the year 1987. 10 years later, here, Eric Brynjolfsson. Across all our subjects, there's lots of readings from this guy. He's quite famous. He came in and he said, Robert Solow, you don't know what you're talking about. He said the productivity paradox doesn't exist. What he said was, there's a measurement problem. The way we're measuring productivity is wrong. If you look at manufacturing, you look at robots, warehouses are automated. Look at Amazon, for example. They have robots in their warehouses. Manufacturing is driving almost the economy. Where your problem with your productivity paradox comes in is the service part of the economy. So how do I measure in terms of like my iPhone if no longer I have to get out the mailways and try and find directions to a certain area, or I don't have to like ask people to find directions? Now I can just do it on my phone. How do I measure that? How do I quantify that and incorporate it into your labor productivity statistics? You can't. So we said the productivity paradox, it's BS, it's nothing. And that was here, late 1990s, early 2000s. Then, productivity paradox came back. Last week, Bookings paper on economic activity, they came out and said the productivity paradox is real. Just last week, this came out as we were doing this presentation. And they said, do you know what? Eric Bjornfin said that you can't measure the service side of the economy. These guys, they invested a lot of time and a lot of effort to quantify how useful technology is to the service sector. And they said, do you know what? If we actually quantify this and if we incorporate it into the productivity statistics, it is actually worse. It's actually worse. Eric Bjornfin, sorry mate, like you got it wrong. And the guys who did this, part of the the Board of Governors from the Federal Reserve of San Francisco, and the International Monetary Fund. So these guys are distinguished authors. They know what they're talking about. And across these groups that I talked about, there's one common theme though, that there is potential lag. It's going to take a little bit of time for these productivity developments, these technology developments, to make it through, to diffuse throughout the economy. Now, the reason for that, unknown, but with the first two industrial revolutions in the 1800s, it took about 100 years for it to cook through the economy. Productivity paradox 2.0. So why are we here? Now we came up with four sort of explanations, and the first one, productivity measures by Bjornfin, was discounted. And that was discounted by the Bookings papers on economic activity. They said, no, we quantified it, you're wrong. Second, complicatedness. Now there's this guy called Yves Moria from Boston Consulting Group, and he he's done a lot of research and last year published a paper and he's got a book and he said, do you know what? Organizations are complicated. They're so complicated. You've got strategy, structure, matrices, you've got reporting frameworks, you've got balanced scorecards, you've got this, you've got KPIs. Your organizations are complicated. How do you do anything? And he did research in the last 60 years, the complicatedness of enterprises has increased by a factor of 35. 35. Organizations are so complicated. No wonder you can't be more productive. No wonder you can't pursue innovation. It's just too complicated. Second guy, he said the end of innovation. This guy, Robert Gordon, he's another economist. And what he said is that, do you know what? The Industrial Revolution, indoor plumbing, the combustion engine, electricity, railroads, etc. These were the biggest sort of shifts in productivity that we're going to see. That's it. These small developments, these tiny incremental developments in technology, they're not good enough. The biggest ones that we're ever going to see in humanity have already been done. The other one was time lag. McKinsey last year did a report, and they said, do you know what? These guys, managing directors, McKinsey Global Institute, and they said, do you know what? Actually, we took the statistics and we took the research from the other authors that I showed you there, Robert Gordon and Eric Bjornsson. They said, do you know what? There's a common theme here. There is a little bit of lag. And we think the lag is about 10, 15 years before we're going to see any productivity improvements. So what do we think? Our group, we went through our research and we came up with our own sort of idea. And I hope you guys will come up with your idea why this is apparent as well. So we said, Robert Gordon, we don't like you saying that this is the end of innovation. You know, we don't agree with you. We think there's still much more to come. We've got artificial intelligence, autonomous machines, machine learning. We think there's a lot more to come. In terms of measurement, well, we know that's not a problem because we've quantified it and we've included it, and actually productivity is worse if we incorporate your measurements. So we think it's a combination of complicatedness and time lag that sort of explains the productivity paradox. What we think is in the next 9-10 years, there's going to be a dynamic shift. We're going to see some huge developments, and it's really exciting for us all. The first of them is the Internet of Things. Smart connected devices, digitizing the physical world. Digitized, connected, monitored, optimized. We're linking the physical world to digital networks. Everything's going to be online. You're going to be able to measure everything. The second is cloud computing. Picture that one day, all your infrastructure, all your computing and all your storage needs are actually just rented from one supercomputer, perhaps Amazon, perhaps Google. Ladies and gentlemen, productivity isn't everything, but in the long run, it is almost everything. And I hope you agree, and I hope you will have an opinion now. Thank you. Do you have any questions?